Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers. It's quite obvious to anyone that takes the time to look and think and compare the things we are told to believe with the experiences and observations that we can make on a daily basis on this earth, to realize that we are not stuck to the outside of a spinning globe. But of course, telling people that we live on a level or flat earth is often met with ridicule, and then arguments come forth that are based on explanations of assumptions that were made to create a heliocentric model in our imaginations. There is nothing that we see on this earth that would ever lead us to assume that we live on a globe. But of course, we are all very familiar with the explanations that we are given, especially when it comes to the idea that the horizon is either the start of curvature in the distance, or possibly a bulge rising up in front of us as we travel on or above a globe. So these arguments are often met with the response, do your own research. And yes, that research can be something as simple as looking at observations that other people have made on a channel like, or on a platform such as YouTube. Here's a great example. I can't remember exactly what this video is. I don't have the link to it, but you might be able to find it. It's a very short clip in one of those collages of clips. And as you can see here, it's unexplained videos you might not want to watch alone. And we see here something that completely defies the idea that we live on a globe that's millions of miles away from a sun. Because here we can see the sun in the clouds in front of the horizon, looking out of an aircraft window. So this alone should be enough for anyone with an open mind and a willingness to question beliefs and so-called knowledge, or even scientific consensus, and realize that somewhere along the line, some massive mistakes and erroneous assumptions have been made. In fact, the entire heliocentric model, which of course the globe is based upon, is nothing more than a bunch of assumptions. And we are, of course, led to believe that we see sunrises and sunsets because we are on the outside of a spinning globe and it's the Earth that's moving rather than a light in the sky, which we actually know very little about. So it's a wonderful picture to get anyone thinking about how this can be possible given the globe Earth scenario we are led to believe in. But I wanted to have another look at horizons and very quickly demonstrate or illustrate, should I say, how the fact that we do see horizons at eye level, again, are observations in real life that in no way fit with the idea or the concept or the assumption that we live on the outside of a globe. So first of all, let's have another look at a shot in the sky of two aircraft. And I'm showing you this because we can illustrate what a passenger on the aircraft would see out of the window, or even the pilot would see. We know that even at something like 40 or 50,000 feet, we see a horizon at the pilot's or the passenger's eye level. And this is an observation, an optical phenomenon that doesn't fit with the globe Earth model and the assumption that the horizon is a measurement that can be made on a fixed geometric sphere. and all we have to do is just think about the observations that we can make. So we look at this aircraft here, and obviously the photographer has an eye level, and that eye level is pretty much in line with the aircraft. So of course in the background we have the horizon at the same level here. And of course we know just by looking that this aircraft is below us, and we would have to tilt down to look at it. And if we did tilt down, then we would have no horizon. We would just see the clouds below. So anyone that takes a flight anywhere will be very familiar with the fact that the horizon is at your eye level when you look out the window, if the aircraft is flying level. And there is at the same time nothing, no measurement to indicate that an aircraft will fly several thousand miles and its down becomes a different angle or even perpendicular to its original down from the start point to the end point. I've personally travelled a distance of about 10,000 kilometres from Thailand to the UK, trying to see if there is any way of measuring the difference in down at the departure point on the equator to down at the destination in the northern hemisphere. And of course there is no difference whatsoever, nothing that can be measured. Of course it can be illustrated, and the assumption can be made that down is always towards the center of a spherical earth, and level is perpendicular to that down direction wherever you are. It's all very easy to understand and perceive and imagine, but again, it doesn't reflect anything we see or observe in reality, or anything that we can measure. So we can see just from this that the horizon is not a tangible thing that we can place any kind of measurement on, even though we can assume it in some kind of model. So let's have a look at this model here. Let me just take off that to get into this very brief explanation. Of course, it's not to scale. It would be very difficult to make it so. It doesn't really matter. The fact is that we have a globe Earth here, which is assumed to be of a fixed geometry. So wherever you assume the horizon is, it is always at eye level, but there are of course arguments about that. Whether you're on the Earth or above the Earth, the moment you rise up above a spherical Earth that is said to have this fixed geometry, as we see here, then the horizon should drop away from you. All that happens when we rise up is that we can see further, we can see beyond whatever was at the limit of our field of view when we were lower down. So here we have an aircraft flying above a spherical Earth, and for the pilot and the passengers, their eye level is here, and this is where anyone on the aircraft would see the horizon. So straight away, just thinking about this scenario from this imaginary point of view, we can see that the observation of a horizon rising up to eye level doesn't fit with this geometric sphere. If this were a real photograph and we were looking at this aircraft, then of course our horizon would be at this level, and we would see the horizon behind the aircraft, wouldn't we? Because it would be at the same level as us and the same level as the aircraft. So again, this illustration of an aircraft flying over a globe doesn't fit with the observations that we make. So if I just put those lines back here, this is just to illustrate how the surface below the aircraft and either side of the aircraft or all around the aircraft would appear to rise up to the eye level of anyone on board, regardless of how high we are above the Earth, even if you consider that the Earth is flat and level, or whether you consider it's a curve. The fact that the surface will appear to rise up to the passengers and pilots' eye level shows us that our observations are an optical illusion, if you like, that cannot necessarily be mathematically measured in any real tangible way, or even converted into some kind of simple illustration to illustrate that we what kind of Earth we live on. So if the reason I pointed out this photograph at the beginning was because we have this horizon at the aircraft's at the same level as the aircraft, at the eye level of the photographer. So considering that whenever you look out of either side of an aircraft window, you see the horizon at your eye level. If we were to try and adjust this to fit with what we actually see, we can try and do something like this. I'll put a line here, and I'll turn the aircraft like that. Okay, so what we see now is a kind of partial illustration. I'll take away these as well, of the passengers and the pilot being, or the passengers at least, looking out of the left-hand side of the aircraft, seeing a horizon at eye level. So if observations were to be matched with this globe Earth model, our aircraft would have to be doing this. It would have to be pitched at an angle in order for the people on the left-hand side of the aircraft to look out and see a horizon. And of course that would mean that the people on the right-hand side of the aircraft would be just looking at sky. And we know that's what actually happens when we're in an aircraft that pitches, or rolls, I should say. But of course, what would happen to the view for the people on the left-hand side of the aircraft is that their entire view would be taken up with the surface or the clouds below. You wouldn't have this gap. So it's just to get across the point here that if you're going to assume that the horizon is a tangible, measurable thing, and that you can make observations of the horizon above a globe, then you have to do this. But then of course it doesn't fit with what we see, again, because on the other side of the aircraft we see sky, and the aircraft would have to be tilting. It's not level anymore. Yeah, so it's just a simple way to, and we can do the same thing here. We can illustrate how it would have to roll or the other way in order for passengers on the right hand side to see a horizon at eye level, if we are to make assumptions about observations when flying above a globe Earth according to the model. Again, none of this fits with reality. So if you're new to all of this, it's quite understandable that your first reaction might be to laugh or ridicule someone like me and use the loaded term flat earther to refer to someone who is simply seeking real answers and making observations and comparing that to the illustrations and explanations that we are given to have us believe the opposite of what we actually observe and experience on the Earth. Of course, you might feel that confident that you are backed by scientific consensus to repeat and regurgitate various stories and accounts that would lead us to believe there's already proof that we live on a globe. But a prerequisite to any assumptions should be obvious, observable and measurable curvature on the surface of the Earth, as well as all the other physics and measurements that we should be able to make given this scenario. And so you'll find that if you do put some thought into it and make some comparisons with reality and the models, and you look into when and where any actual measurements were ever done, you'll find that it's never been done. There has never ever been any kind of actual measurement of curvature on the surface of the Earth. Ever. It's always been assumed by looking up into the sky and making assumptions. Again, these assumptions are born from all the other assumptions that were cobbled together for a heliocentric model. In my opinion, the only reason that we have this belief that we live on a globe is because of the introduction of the heliocentric model to go along with the Gregorian or solar calendar. So hence this concept was brought forth to have the sun at the center of a model that does nothing more than illustrate the passage of time, and therefore in order to have the transition between day and night in this heliocentric model, the Earth has to be a spinning or rotating sphere to fit in with that model. The Earth being another planet is just an assumption that had to be made to justify day and night on the Earth in the heliocentric model. And from that we've had all these so-called scientific explanations of observations that convert what we see into this imaginary curve. We see a level Earth, we see flatness, we know that when we look across any surface and see the horizon rise to eye level, this is what happens in our eyes when we look across a flat surface. It would be great if someone could actually come up with a fundamental measurement of curvature on the surface of the Earth to illustrate that what we see here with these aircraft around at different places flying above a globe is what actually happens in reality. Very easy to perceive, and the fact that it can be very accurately illustrated mathematically would have us falsely assume that this is backed by science. Mathematics is a language that can be used to tell stories, to make illustrations. And so yes, you can make an illustration like this, and you can use geometry and trigonometry and angles and distances, and you can make it work. It would be called a working model. But it just doesn't fit with our reality in so many ways. You just look at this scenario and you know instinctively that this is not how we travel or navigate across or above the Earth. It just doesn't happen this way. Never been measured this way. If we were to believe that we lived on a globe, the fundamental observation or measurement that anyone should ever make is one of curvature, with this kind of side-on view that we have here. Let's see the curve. Let's have a measurement of curvature. Never been done. That's a prerequisite for any other assumptions that we live on a globe. So that's why, eventually, if you come along and troll a flat earther, he or she will eventually say, show me the curve. Show me measurable proof. Show me the science. And of course the physics. Again, we can all imagine this physics of gravity, and of course we're told that in order for a plane to travel around the globe and level, not change, we are told that even though the aircraft is flying, the force of gravity is somehow pulling the aircraft around the globe. It's all imaginary stuff. Again, we can all perceive it. It's not too difficult. But it doesn't fit our reality. I would love to be proved wrong. Feel free to do so with demonstrable, measurable proof. Thank you very much.